Welcome back to Podcast Recovery, everyone. We're your hosts, David O.
And Carly R.
I still find it weird that you say Carly R and not Carly S.
I can't.
Okay.
It's just...
Okay, that's fine.
It doesn't feel right.
Okay, I feel you. Today we're joined by a very special guest, Jack. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well this morning. Thank you.
I'm glad we got you in studio. Like we tried it on the phone, and it's not right. We need your personality in house.
Okay.
It wasn't feeling right.
And I feel the same way because I kind of try to draw off of the spirit of the people that I'm in the room with. So
yeah, man.
It's a big deal. And I was coming down the highway, so that would have made it really difficult.
Oh yeah, it was fine, and then some reason the sound got all sorts of wonky. We were this isn't working. This isn't the best way to convey your message.
That's right.
How you doing today, man?
I'm doing well, man. We talked before the podcast, and life couldn't be better. You know, life could not be better.
I hear you. So where are you from, Jack?
I'm from Baltimore City, West Baltimore.
Nice.
Born and raised.
Nice. When were you first introduced to recovery?
I was first introduced to recovery after coming out of a treatment facility in August of 2011.
Okay. And how long have you been clean?
I've been clean since that day. 10 years and a couple of months, maybe 2 months.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Time flies.
It does, man. And I always say that because you asked me where I was from, and I said Baltimore City, right? I didn't say that I was in the streets before that first time for 30 years, right?
Yep.
And actually a lot longer before that, but it was just the 30 years before really meeting the love of my life, my actual drug of choice that we'll get into later.
Yeah, man. All right. Well, with all that out of the way, I'm going to turn it over to you to share your story with us. Take it away, brother.
All right. Well, once again, thank you and Carly for having me on this morning. It's always it's an honor for me when I'm asked to come out and share my experience, strength, and hope, right? Because at times my disease can still tell me that I don't have a message, right? And
which is crazy because you have a friggin' amazing message.
Man, look. Well, I think when we live our messages, right, it's not less meaningful, but less less highlights than some people I can be telling it to, you know. And a lot of times in some of the places I find myself, I can tell, I'll tell you bits and pieces of my story today, right?
Yeah.
But believe this, that there are so many, I like to say traumatic or events that were pivotal.
Oh, yeah.
Right, in the way that my life and my disease would take me to, right? You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so, in the periods of time that we have when we share our experience, man, I just try to hit on a few of them that would, where I'm telling a story where it'll show you exactly where it started and where it ended.
Yep.
And what I've done since then. So, once again, I'm honored to be here. I come from West Baltimore, right? I come from Liberty Heights and Garrison. I always like to say this because it's pivotal. I come from one of the only 2-parent families in my neighborhood. My father was a school teacher when I was a child. My mother worked for the telephone company. We come from one of those families where, we sat down as a family, had dinner. After dinner, somebody's chore was to do dishes. And then you would sit at the table and study, right? You had to sit there, we clean the table off, you pull your school books out, and you would sit at that table and study for 2 hours, whether you had homework or not, right? But what happened in all of those years of doing that, right? I thought that I heard my friends outside laughing at me, which will dictate another decision I made a little further ways down. So, I come from one of those families where when the lights came on, it was my father howled out names, Jackie, Sheila, Jenny, Prop, let's go. And we all came into the house, right? Yeah. We come in, we were still at that age then where we gave our parents a hug and a kiss and we went to bed after Archie Bunker or the Cosby Show, whatever year it was, right? And then it came, I experimented with a lot of starter drugs throughout those, my early years. Yeah. And then I got to high school. And I can remember my father asking me,
what years were you in high school?
Is that a joke or no?
How old you?
I graduated high school in 1981.
Jesus
Christ!
Right?
Shit.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Which remember that date?
None of us remember
that date because my father asked me. Once again, I told you my father was an educator. He was a school teacher, so he said, "Have you made any plans for what you're going to do when you graduate high school? And and I said, yes, I have, right? I always call this my Theo Huxtable moment, right? You know? And I said, I'm going to take me a year off, right? And I ain't say find myself, but that was what I was trying to articulate to him. And he made it clear to me. He was real cool, right? He said, that's cool, but you're not going to live here while you take that year off.
Yeah.
Right? And that was like 4 or 5 months before I graduated high school. Graduate, go out party, you know how we do on graduation night.
Oh, yeah.
And the very next morning, like the crack of dawn, I was awakened. And I always said that I was waking with my first introduction to black trash bags, which will become a part of my story for a really long time, right? Because he said it's time to go. And I didn't really
wasn't
think.
fucking around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look, so I throw all my little stuff because I had that, like our friend Chip will say, that male puffery, right?
Yeah.
I had that thing going on, right? So I poked my chest out, got up, threw a few things in them bags, and I walked out the back door, got to the end of the steps, and I said, damn, where am I going? Right? Summer of 1981, right? So by the summer of 1982, the middle of 1982, I had an address. I knew where I was going, right? And the address was 954 Forest Street. And if you don't know what that is, that's the Maryland State Penitentiary. And I had a brand new 15-year sentence. I talked a little bit about when we opened up about how I would find the love of my life, right, with my drug of choice. So I went into that penitentiary, you know, and growing up, I always heard all the stories about prison. So I knew exactly what I was going in there to do, who I was seeking out to be, who I was seeking out to hang out with. And I went in there and I did what we do in there. Got with a group of guys, we drinking and we smoking in there, but it's something about not looking like everybody else looking, not feeling like everybody else is feeling. I said, what the hell are they doing that I'm not doing? And one particular night, I made a decision to follow him down to my buddy Fuzzy, my friend Fuzzy's cell. And I go down to Fuzzy's cell, and in the penitentiary, you keep a wool blanket over yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So I pull this thing back, and they in there with needles in their arm. And I had never used a needle up until that point.
Yeah.
Right? And I went in that room, that cell that night, and I stuck my arm out and I said, give me some, right? Whew, what a decision, because I did not know. First of all, I like to say this. When I walked out of my father's house that morning and I got to the end of that walkway and sat them bags down and didn't know where I was going, I didn't know the ass whipping that the streets of Baltimore City would get ready to put on this young boy who was completely unprepared for the things that were about to happen, right?
Oh, and Baltimore was ready to give you that ass.
It was right. It was at the prime time.
Oh yeah,
right. You've seen a lot of early my story 80s. On The Wire, right? I lived in that stuff, right? I have, so man, when I did that in the summer in 1982 in that penitentiary, like, I said that I got clean in 2011. That was 1982, right? I'm telling you, right, that like that period of time in between there, if you do the math, right, I absolutely got furred.
Oh, yeah.
In the streets, right? Every day wasn't a bad day, but like some of the experiences that I had, we talk about it a lot, man. The homelessness, the being shot up, the being like, living in abandonments, being hood rich, right? Going back and forth to prison, back and forth to prison, back and forth to prison. Seeing, there were so many traumatic events, not only with myself being shot, right? Several times, but so many traumatic events. I'll tell you one that I was thinking about on the way here when I was 13 years old, already hustling in the streets, selling weed and stuff like that. A friend of mine, I'm walking with a friend of mine and a flower truck. We see a flower truck pull up like a block ahead of us. Two guys jump, the sliding door on the side opens up, two guys jump out. First time I ever see somebody blow somebody's head off with a gun at that young age, right? And there were so many other incidents like that, and that was just the start of some of the traumas that I would see, man. So like in that period of time, from that first day in that penitentiary, putting that thing in me, man, and going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, I always would, I had a friend of mine used to say, damn, you keep going to prison, building that body up, right? Because I would come home looking like Hulk Hogan or Luther Reagan or something, right? You know, looking good, only to like in 6 months be making that quiet surrender again. And what I mean by that is being caught again, handcuffed, getting into the back of the paddy wagon, and never once thinking about not stopping using drugs.
Yeah.
Always saying to myself, shit, I should have went the other way.
Now back then, like in the 80s, was there anybody in like the institutional like line of anything saying there's a way out of this?
It's funny you would say that, because yes, there was. To answer your question, not only had Judge Silvers in circuit court for Baltimore City offered me help one time. He said, man, look, you need help. And I said, help with what?
Yeah.
Right? He said, you can take this 5 years or let me send you to get some help. And I said, no, let me get that 5 years. Right?
Wow.
I don't know why, but that would be how my life went. But yes, to answer your question, when I was in the house of correction, right, sometimes in the evening, the only way that you could get out of your cell was when they either called the go cop, right, was to either when they called medication or 12-step meetings. So I can remember clearly in the cut, running out to go meet whoever, to get a few bags of smack. And walking into the meeting late, and hearing them, we don't care how much you use or who your connections were, right? And I was like, are they talking to me? Still, you know what they say, the core of our disease is self-centeredness, right? I was so self-centered that
everybody's always talking about you, man.
But I heard it. Yeah. And that wasn't the only read. I heard the rest of some, them readings in there, man. So that was my exposure to it. Even at the end of my road, I had a friend who I had ran the street with, been homeless with, actually went through a traumatic event with him, right? With him and another friend, them shooting each other up, right? But he looked at me. I used to see him going into a meeting every morning, right? And he would say, boy, let me know when you need some help. Let me know when you want to get some of this. And like, I would run. I would go to other with help. I don't even, just like I did with that judge, right? But it's something about when you get to the end, right? Can't live with or without, you know what I mean? And I got to that point one day and I didn't run. I sat there and I waited for him to pull up and I said, boy, I'm ready, right? The help has always been here, you know what I mean? So it was just up to me when I was gonna die, what I like to call my spiritual death, right? And like, that's what it took for me, because like the drugs stopped working. The drugs stopped. It's funny, we were talking about the Ravens before we started, right? I always reference how I felt in the end to being in Raven Stadium on a Sunday, full capacity, and feeling all alone, right? That's how I can reference that. That's my spiritual bottom, man. So that I wouldn't get arrested again and get in the paddy wagon and say, I should have went this way. Like, I could finally surrender, you know what I mean? And when help was offered, be able, when they say, what is your problem? How you can help? I could get honest and tell somebody what's going on with me, man. Greatest decision I ever made. Greatest decision. So, I took that opportunity and I told that guy that day, I said, I'm ready, man. And I'll tell you what happened, right? The day before that, how do I say this? We got a long line of people. And at the end of the line, I see the narcotics detective coming, right? And I still had a bag of things on me and I threw them in my mouth, and no sooner than because I was going to swallow the whole bag. And no sooner than I got it down there, this is what happened. And I'm talking about, you see how big I am. I wasn't this big then. He flipped me, boom, right? And I didn't know it, but he put a pen down my throat, right? And pulled that bag out of my mouth, right? So I forgot the time, but it wasn't but a few days because the guy, we got out on bail and stuff. And I told my friend I was ready, man. And I went to court for those charges and stuff, but the process had started. And I took some suggestions, man. And And I went into treatment, and so my journey began. And what a journey!
Oh yeah,
what a journey, man! I was thinking also on the way riding here how completely my life looks different today than it did in August of 2011. All those preceding years up to that, man. I've come around here, man. I'm taking some suggestions from some people, which would directly they were directly affecting me, changing my life. And some of them suggestions were just like to do the work, the internal work, right? Because I've already stopped using drugs, right?
Yeah.
I was told that the drugs were just a symptom of my disease, Jack. We need to figure out why you were really suppressing some feelings and stuffing all those years and putting on mask after mask. Like, what were you afraid of?
Yeah.
So I answered the challenge, man. I often heard that like people around here will give you, people who care about you and want to help you save your life will give you some suggestions, man. And I heard this guy say, Jack, suggestions are free, right? They don't cost you nothing. The only ones you got to pay for are the ones that you don't take. Meaning that like when I don't, right? You get that? That went way over my head when I first heard it.
Oh yeah,
but
dude, they always do. Like those, so many times Herb has said shit to me,
right.
and at the time when he said, I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Right.
Shit doesn't make sense. And then, dude, 9 months later,
yeah, consequences.
It hits, and you're like, damn, he told me that
That's
shit
right.
too.
Yeah, man. So I learned really early on to take suggestions, right? Take all suggestions. Like I didn't pick and choose. I'm talking about, look, giving this thing my complete and unabandoned attention, man. You know what I mean? Cause like I had failed at everything, right? And like I was stuck in this vicious cycle that I thought that I could never get out, and I could never have a so-called quote unquote normal life without the use of something, right? But I had bought into the lie only to figure out that, man, that people do recover. Yeah. Right? So like when I'm asked to come out here and share my experience like this, man, I can share exactly the things that work for me. I got involved with a group of men in recovery, pretty much stayed away from women for 4 whole years, right? Of my first 4 years of recovery.
That's probably the best suggestion.
The best one, greatest one. And
yes, I'm looking at you.
It is.
Terrible women.
Right.
I didn't do anything to you.
Dragging us down.
You part of it.
I love you.
No, but what it did, it gave me an opportunity. Women can't teach me how to be a man, right? I came around here and I learned how to be a man. I learned how to be a father. I learned how to be a son, right? I was, I can remember still wanting throughout all that time to have a woman, right? And I had a sponsor back then. Rick B was my sponsor back then. And Rick B was like, dog, I want you to make a list with all the things all the qualities and characteristics you want in a woman and bring it to me. And I bought him that list, man. I put a whole lot of thought into it. And, and time. And when I gave it to him, he didn't even read it. He gave it right back. He said, become everything on that list and that's what you'll attract. That was the day that I got when he always talks about water seeks its own level, right? If I'm still sick, that's what I'm going to attract. So like when I fellowship with those men and I was, doing the work necessary to change internally because the drugs were just a symptom of my problem. Oh yeah, I was able to start becoming a better person, right? And I did, and that's what I did. I attracted. I can remember, finally getting into a relationship and starting something, and this woman asking me one day, what's your credit score, right? And I said
Jessica.
Yeah, right.
100%.
And I'm like, credit score, why would you ask me? But then we did the research and and my credit score was 427, right? And it's something I need to say because I don't know who listening to this. When I first got here, I'm talking about records of my past, right? Oh yeah. I owed $36,000 in child support, right? I had so many garnishments on my paychecks for the first 5 years, right? But I did get through all of it. Everything's paid off, right? I've been cleaning up my records, which is part of like what kept me using. Guilt and shame will keep us using, which we deal with in the work that I was talking about. So man, we cleared my credit up and our relationship began to get a little more serious. And some of the things that I thought that could never happen to me because we only come here for freedom from active addiction. Yeah. Right. That was all I wanted to do. If I could just stop using drugs, my life could get better. I did the work and I stopped using drugs. So some of the other freedoms and benefits begin to happen for me. That same woman, you know, we planned a wedding outside. Well, first of all, before I get to that, one of the things I do at work is I help men and women get record expungement, right? Get their records expunged.
Well, that's one of the best things I've gotten.
Right. So after 5 years of doing it, somebody said, "Have you ever expunged had your own record done?" I was like, "I don't need mine done. I'm all right." Only to figure out that I wasn't all right. Yeah. Right. You know, because and I did get it expunged, you know, on my 5th year, my 5th anniversary, that morning, I got 36 expungement letters in the mail, right?
Because they all come at once.
Keep coming, right.
Oh yeah.
And I got a passport in the mail that I had applied for, right? I'm talking about cleaning up records and being able to make some plans, right? And this woman that like I waited for, and you know, that God sent me, right? We were planning a wedding in the Cayman Islands, and we went to, you know, in another country and got married on the beach, and you know,
I'll tell you, that's an ultimate show of faith on your part.
Right.
Like, you didn't even know if you could leave the fucking country, and you're booking plane tickets, you're booking hotels, and just
the
like,
entire wedding.
Just I know inside you that like somewhere you believe like, it's all gonna work out.
Well, and that's the faith. If you read the Just for the Day today, right? That's what they talked about, right? Faith will get us clean, right? They talked about how the two things in recovery are getting clean and staying clean on faith, right? And that's what I've been able to do. You know, we plan a lot of things around here now. Why am I able to plan things? Because I've gotten to that point where I've done some internal work on myself, and I'm saying to myself that I have some tools to understand that I don't ever have to use no matter what comes down the pipe. That same father that I talked about early on in my story died when I had 9 months clean, right? And like that was the only day in my recovery that I would say I need something, because when I got that phone call, I was in a recovery house and I told my buddy, I crying and shit. And he said, "What's wrong?" I said, "My father just died, man. I need something." And he said, "Sit your ass down," right? And that's how long, just telling me to sit down, it took me to sit down there for my recovery to kick in and not go to the familiar thing that I would normally do, which was go use and make a mess of everything. So like, other than that, the desire to use drugs has been lifted, right? And I have to stay vigilant and continue to do those things, right? So, we went over there, we got married, man. You know, that credit score that I improved will put me in position to, to buy a home, to buy a car, all the things that we want in life, right? That I thought would never happen for me, to build relationships back with my sons. I have 2 boys that are the love of my life, right? And they, they 27 years old now, right? And they love recovery for me more than I love it for myself, because they've been giving their father back, I've been there, and a lot of other things have happened in recovery. I lost my brother during COVID, right? Now, no need to use, right? Call my network, man. Talk about it, stay in the moment, be able to show up I've been able to do just so many things clean that I would never have showed up for had I been still out there in the streets. So many.
Well, we definitely have some questions for you.
Come on with them.
What you got? Ladies first.
No, I never go first. I can't.
Okay.
It doesn't feel right.
Okay.
What?
Well, I offered.
I appreciate the offer. That was so nice of you, sweet of you.
I knew it was gonna like boomerang back to me.
Yeah.
It was an egocentric thing. All right. I want to talk about that male puffery. That like, and people have heard it, like toxic masculinity. And I also want to hear your take on this as well, because I don't think it's just a male thing.
Right.
But I want to get the male perspective, female perspective.
Okay.
So, like, what is it about us? Because I know when I was a young man, nobody was going to tell me shit. Right. I didn't want that help. If you offered that help, I was going the opposite direction. Like, is that like a human ego thing? What is it that like makes us think we have these answers that deep down we know we don't have?
It's a great question. I like to say, first of all, interesting, because what I think about first is the animal kingdom. Okay. I love National Geographic.
You're speaking my language now, man.
I know I am. I got to know you over
you know
the
your
years.
audience.
So when I watch these birds flash, when they build a nest and they showing their colors and they performing for the opposite sex, right? That's the closest thing I can say to you for male puffery, just on that level.
Yeah.
You feel me? And then, back in the biblical days or the gladiator days, that like, we perform to be like the strongest, and throughout time, I believe that men have bought into like gender roles. Yeah. Right? So gender roles are something that for me don't apply anymore because of, feminist movements and things all and I'm right on board with all of it. So, but like some of us will still, because we have
it's stuff, still very much in society. For
sure. So like I held on to a lot of that stuff. So hopefully that answers your question a little bit. I held on to a lot of it, and like until now I'm able to sit back and allow a woman to take the lead, or like don't have to perform to be the biggest and the baddest. I don't have to be a bully. I don't have to present like I'm the strongest person. I'm able to just face the world on even scale.
What about you?
What?
So
reword it for me.
For a woman. Okay, so we like the toxic masculinity side. We're always like putting on a show, and like we're fighting for that independence, whatever. Like acting like we know shit and we don't. Women do that too, but it's from like a different because like I know you, Carly, and you asking for help
is a sign of weakness.
Okay. So it's very similar.
Yeah. Well, at least for me it is. I can't speak for everybody.
Yeah, obviously.
I mean, I was the youngest of 3 girls, and my dad was that big pusher, figure it out, do it yourself. And then my mom even was like, just get up and push through it. Like, sweet. Yeah. And that was just how I was raised. Like, if I showed my feelings, if I showed anything, if I didn't know what I was doing, it was a sign of weakness. And it was like, oh, okay, if I don't know how to do it, if I don't figure it out on my own, that makes me less than.
Okay.
Wow.
And that's a big thing for the streets of any inner city, especially Baltimore. You can't show that fucking weakness. You can't show it in jail. Like, you got to protect that shit.
And then isn't it ironic how that came together? Because like that's one of the things, that's how I was raised by my parents. I was sheltered. I was shielded. I was protected. Right? So I felt the same thing that you just explained in my childhood. That's why when I said I got to the end of that walkway that day and sat them bags down and didn't know what the streets were about to do to me. It's because like all my decisions have been made for me, right, by my parents, right. They for the most part tried to shield me from seeing most of the things that were happening out on that street, right. They didn't teach me. Well, I shouldn't say that. But my survival skills were minimal, to say the least. Right? They were minimal, right? Because then they encouraged competition between us, but it was educational competition, right? Sports. I played all sports, things like that. So male puffery came out in that arena as well. Right?
Yeah. All right. What you got, Carl?
Let's see. Well, you talked a lot about trauma from even just being young. So how do you think all of the trauma played into your addiction?
Okay, thank you. That was a good question also, right? Because I'm a firm believer that like traumas from very young ages all the way through addiction, right? Through active addiction are the areas of our lives where we really have to do the most work, because they're the things that have the potential to resurface and trigger us, right? Trigger feelings, trigger emotions, right? So I believe they played into my life, let's run with this one theme that I was talking about with my wife. My wife, I'm an African-American man from Baltimore City. My wife happens to be a white woman from Savage, Maryland, right? Grew up with David and them and shit, right? Right?
Yeah, that's fair.
I always used to say this thing that like, I ain't never been abused, right? I've never been sexually abused, until like I got comfortable enough to talk with my wife. And like being abused doesn't just mean like a man doing something to a young boy. So like through talking with her, and another friend of mine who's in recovery as well, I came to find out that I had been abused, right? And this abuse was done to me by a family friend, a woman who I was very young. They used to force me, I shouldn't say force, had me do sexual things with her. And this is to answer it with your question, like I was told to never tell anybody. If you do, all the stuff we're here, right? But what that taught me throughout life was it ruined every other relationship that I would have with a woman, right? Until I figured it out. When I figured it out, until I became aware of the trauma. Because I went through life hiding sex. It prevented me from having like loving and caring, open relationships with women, because I thought it was something dirty and nasty that had to be hidden, because because I can remember when I got into this relationship with this woman that I was just referencing, and we going walking in parks, and she would want to kiss, and sometimes some other things in the woods.
Oh, man.
I'm telling you, right? And the fear would kick up. I'm talking about not just that, but like kissing and hugging and showing intimacy in stores, right? That trauma affected that area of my life, and I didn't even know it. Didn't know why, but I carried it into every other relationship. I referenced that incident with the van pulling up and blowing this guy's head off. Until I got into recovery, every van, the name on the side of that van was Jerry Gary's Flower Shop. I never forgot that, right? And every van that pulled up in a specific situation, that trauma jumped up. Right? I was reliving it, right? Some of my situations where I was shot, like, I could hear certain things, I could see certain things, and like it triggers those events. So like I have to, if I always say, if you don't deal with your traumas, if you don't address them, they'll address you. Right? I always say that.
Love that. And like, I want to answer that.
My wife's gonna kill me.
No.
No, we had her last week.
Yeah, we got her last week.
I can't wait to hear that.
Oh yeah. But and I think that's been a big problem in just the whole more public addressing of addiction, is for this whole war on drugs. It's we've been attacking the drugs, and we're not attacking that trauma.
Right.
We're not attacking those feelings and misconceptions and that level of ego and masculinity that really is the core of addiction. For sure.
So listen to this, right? Because we all have parents. We all in this room are in recovery, right? How many times have you heard, boy, what's wrong with you?
Oh.
Why don't you just stop?
Yep.
Right? What's wrong with you? What is wrong with you?
Yeah.
And now, like, through trauma-informed care, which is like something I've literally been trained in, doing, like, we don't ask what's wrong anymore. We ask you what happened.
Yeah.
Right? What happened? And like, when I can begin to tell those stories about what happened, we can unpack them, right? And help whoever suffered the trauma not relive it in a negative way, but see it from a different perspective, right? Yeah. So all of those things that happened, I always thought that things happened, how do we say this, to me. They didn't happen to me. They just happened. You. Right? They just happen, and I have to like take it off of myself to think that I have to live with that for the rest of my life, right? So trauma-informed care, man, when we get into working with that, man, we can get over, I'm traumatized by grits. If you go out trying,
you are weird with your food. You are weird with your food. That's true.
Right. So listen to this, because like, I come from a poor family.
Oh yeah.
Right? So we had grits for breakfast, grits and eggs. We had grits and like hot dogs for lunch. Yeah. And we had grits and beef stew for dinner every day.
Yeah.
Until my parents became a little more successful, middle class. But I can remember those days and like, I'll never eat it again. It ain't that I don't like it. I'm traumatized by oatmeal. My sister used to make me eat it. Right?
Yeah.
So traumas come in all forms and fashions. They don't just have to be, you know.
Yeah, it's not always a major thing.
Right,
Sometimes it's that little thing, and it's the perception of the person receiving it, for sure.
Man.
All right. All right. I've watched your recovery. Like we're neck and neck. You're one lap ahead of me.
Right.
But dude, your fire in this area and just everything you do in recovery is now a decade strong. Mm-hmm. How do you fuel that recovery?
You know, I keep it fresh. Mm-hmm. First, and let me start. You know, I'm not a lap ahead of you. We on this journey together, right? Because your fire and passion, is just as strong, right? Look at what we doing here. Look at how many people you reach. You know, always, we talk a lot about finding a purpose.
Yeah.
Right. You know, before I got here, I didn't have a reason to live. Mm. You feel me? So now that I've found a reason to live. Like, you know, and I find a reason for live. It's like trusting in the higher power, whatever it is, right? That I'm going to be put into the right positions and the right situations, man. The situation I've been put into was to like build a career out of recovery.
Yeah.
Right. You know, so when I say that, I don't say that to talk about the career. I say it to say that like I'm always in a position to keep my recovery fresh by helping people seeking recovery.
Yeah.
Right? You know, so like the more that I see that, you know, I get to help people, like one of the greatest gifts for me, like I say recovery is the gift that keeps on giving, right? It's for me to help someone and see them get this thing and help somebody else. So like that's how I keep it fresh, right? I might be involved with these 20 newcomers this month or 6 months. Once they find their way and find their tribe and start helping people in their own way, I'm able to start it all over again, right? And we use we throw this word vigilance around lightly.
Oh yeah.
Right? It's important for me because I've seen so many people who stop being vigilant, stop doing the things that have afforded them the opportunity to be abstinent and working on a program of recovery. And so we're telling them that's okay for them. But when I told that guy that when he told me that I never had to use again, and I told him I was going to become a part of that no matter what club, there was some things that came along with becoming a part of that no matter what club. We often talk about freedom, right? But freedom ain't free. It's going to require a level of doing some work around here, right? To be able to stay here and doing 100%. The work excites me. Yep. I get to meet people like you and Carly, man, and like we've done a lot of things around here. Like life is not boring and monotonous, so I find beauty and I find that there's like enjoyment and fun and things like that. And doing some of the most what I used to think was some of the most mundane things and like excite me. I was in the garden this morning. Yeah. Right?
Hell yeah.
Cleaning out the garden.
Yep. And speaking of that, so I remember, God, this was 6-7 years ago. We're at the Ocean City convention, and I'm pretty sure it was just you and me. Like we both were the early risers, and we go out onto that balcony, and like we're having our coffee and our cigarette, and we're just talking. We were like, how the fuck did it get this good, man?
It was that one of Mike and Joni's.
Yes,
that
Mike and Joni's,
clearly,
dude. And like we're just, and it's Ocean City Beach, so it's not like it's the fucking Cayman Islands, but like even our minds we couldn't fucking fathom like, man, we're in this awesome place, like doing recovery. There's the ocean right there, and like it was just
amazing, man. And it's I like to say it's the moments like that I reflect the most and I enjoy the most, right? It's, that trip down there was like when how we say we throw this around a lot in the rooms, right, that we go to, right? Staying in the moment. Yeah. Like, what the hell does that mean, right? So Ocean City is real significant for me because like when I went to Ocean City the first time for a convention, one of the first things I did was call my father, because my father literally, no matter how much money we didn't have, we always traveled. I've been all over the country with my family, right? So I called my father. I said, "Why haven't we ever been to Ocean City?" And he said, "Son, Because I was in love with it from the jump, right? He said, well, when you were a kid, the only thing a black man could do in Ocean City was pick tobacco or shine shoes, and I wasn't taking you there for that, right? So I got that part.
Yeah.
But like I got in touch with nature down there, man. I stood on that beach and I heard the sounds of the waves and the wind blowing and smelling the water, right?
Oh, that sunrise meeting is something else.
You know, and that's where I became part of that stand in the moment. That was the gift that was given to me down there then. That's when I understood it. So like, buddy.
What you got?
Well, at this point in your recovery, do you see your addiction manifesting itself in other ways?
I would like to say no.
Yeah.
However, yes, I do.
That's a big word.
Yes. Well, today, yes. Today, I'm in day about, I came back on the 12th. I'm in about day 30 of no sugar and no bread. Right, because, you know, one of the things, you know, we come around here and we stop using drugs and alcohol. Right? But I have been, September the 21st was a year for me nicotine free. Right? So giving up the nicotine, I gave up the cigarettes for 6 years, vape for a couple years. But it's been a year with none of it now. Yeah. But I allowed myself to start eating like crazy, right? It became...
Oh, I see those pictures of those pineapple upside down cakes your mom making you.
Right, and you're still going to see them.
Good.
You're still going to see them, right? Because like that's something that I allow her to still do for her. Yeah. And I just give it away, but I can't touch it anymore. Not today. Yeah. So like, yes, my disease has today, I would say it's in food. It's in not the, you know how we talk about control being impossible. The moment I cannot control eating things that are unhealthy for me. So like, until I stop, just like with the drug. So now I've had to practice the discipline in the food area. Yeah. You know, and I'm here to report that I've already lost 8 pounds.
All right.
You know, it has, you know, at one time it was shopping, right? I couldn't stop buying tennis shoes.
Carly.
Hey, I have not bought... No, that's not true.
Right.
Perfect.
But yes, so it does. But I believe that we can work this program in every area of our life, right? Recovery program, like we can find a solution. Yeah. To whatever we're experiencing, whatever we're going through, like whatever area my addiction may be manifesting in, I can use the same tools that I use, just tweak them a little bit to stop the obsession and the compulsion to use substances. Right?
Are you on that keto shit too?
No.
I say,
it ain't that serious.
I mean, you're not that serious.
Jess, Allie.
I know, right?
All I know, she's nuts.
I'm not ever doing that.
But anybody who's listening, like what he said was like very crucial, because like recovery is it's going to be a different layer to the onion every time. Yeah. You don't overwhelm yourself. Like start with one thing, and like if you're smoking when you first get clean, don't think like, oh, I got to get clean and I got to quit smoking. Right. Like if it's helping you right now, it's all right. It's a lesser of two evils. We'll address that later. Yeah. If you're overeating a little bit too much, we can address that. But like, give yourself some time. Don't beat yourself up about like those little manifestations that are gonna come. Like some days you're gonna spend more. Some days you're gonna eat more. It's like it's okay, but like as long as you like don't make the ultimate mistake, like we can work on it.
That's right. Not being too hard on myself. It's important for me, and that's why I have a sponsor. That's why I have a network of people, right? Because like I'm still my worst critic. You know what I mean? Yeah. When I magnify things to the umpteenth. Oh yeah. You know what I mean? So it's important for me to keep people who care about me around me, who are willing to tell me the truth about myself. Yeah. Don't try to protect my feelings, whatever, right? And my feelings get hurt a lot. You know, sure, I have the fire and and the compassion and the empathy and the love and all of that, right? But there are days where I can come up short as well, right? They just in areas that have nothing to do with using drugs. Yeah. You know, I can still be a people pleaser, right? I can still consume too much product. I can consume too much screen time. I can consume. I can work too much. I can, I work a lot. That's another area that I have to be open and honest with people around me with, right?
But you took off for us today, didn't you?
No, I'm off on Saturday. If it would have been on Sunday, I would.
That's when it was.
Yes, indeed. And this worked perfectly because, any opportunity that I get to share what was so freely given to me, right, is an opportunity to reach one other person, right? These sound waves, this stuff go far and beyond. Somebody, right, will identify with something. That's why we talk about so much, man. Somebody identify with something.
Yeah, you could be talking to a kid in Oakland right now.
Exactly.
And that kid's hearing you damn.
Right. Same story.
Same story.
And we can relate.
Yeah. All right. So I got my final question. It's a two-parter.
Okay.
All right. So if you could say anything to young Jack 1981, what would you say? And would you think he would listen?
I'll answer the second part first. No, he wouldn't listen, right? But what I would say to him is that everything that the people who are closest to you in your life right now are trying to instill in you, morals, principles, values, and things like that, lessons, right? Pay attention to them.
Yeah.
When I get to the end of myself, it's important for me to remember all of those lessons because, not knowing in 1981, with talking to that younger version of myself, right, I wouldn't know that all of those lessons and morals and principles and values, I would remember every one of them, right, and I would get an opportunity, right, to practice them. A mutual friend of ours lost his dad. I referenced losing my dad, so Donnie. Would lose his dad, and I can remember we were standing outside of a restaurant after a meeting one night, and he said, "One thing I want to ask you, because when we share like this, we sharing to help somebody who's going to go through what we're going to go through." And I can remember him saying, "Did you forget all the lessons and life skills that your dad had gave you?" And I said, "Absolutely not." And I said, "Hold on to every conversation that you've ever had with your dad." And that's what I would tell that young version of myself, that young 1981 Jack. Everything you going through today is going to make you a better person when you do make that decision to change your life.
Yeah. All right. You got a last one, Carly?
I do. I asked Jess this last week, so I wanted to kind of see the parallel.
Set up question now. Come on.
Biggest accomplishment in recovery?
Wow, that's heavy. My biggest, off the cuff, my biggest accomplishment in recovery for me is not going to involve things. It's not going to involve people, but it's going to involve me, right? I'm sure that my biggest accomplishment in recovery, and I have to preface it with this, I had very, very, very low self-esteem when I got here to recovery, right? I absolutely had no confidence. I had no, nothing, for Jack.
Yeah.
I believed more in everybody else than I believed anything. So my biggest accomplishment has been to gift myself me. And when I say that, I have done the work on, building my esteem, building my confidence, shattering that false ego, that false pride and those things like that. So being in recovery has gifted me. That's the first time I've ever said that one. I'm like,
dude, that is so
thank you, Carly.
Good, man.
That is that is the best gift that I can give myself for recovery. That's my greatest accomplishment, hands down. There's been a lot of other things that I've accomplished. I've gone back to school, got a more of an education. I, got good jobs and a bunch of trainings and, all the other stuff that I've named in life that I've gotten in recovery. But the work that I've done for myself, on myself, for myself has to be, because it's going to be that gift that I can continue to share, because I continue to cultivate different relationships in my life, man. And I'm able to give this thing away freely.
That is a fucking great quote, man. Dude, that's the name of the episode. 100%. Right. Gifting me. Damn.
That's right.
All right. Well, we would like to thank Jack for joining us today.
Yeah, all right. Woo. Thanks for having me.
You did a great job, man. One quick minute, talk to anybody out there who's struggling, needs to hear that message of hope. What do you got to say to them?
What I'll say to you out there, if you're struggling right now, you don't know where hope is or if there's even hope, but I've been right there with you. There is hope. Mm-hmm. Reach out to your local whatever, right? And find somebody, look for somebody who looks just like you, or like somebody who, make yourself available for help. There are 12-step meetings everywhere. There, you have therapists, doctors, and places like that can refer you to the help. There is help. Don't feel like you have to do this thing alone, right? We participate in some programs out here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, like I said, thank you, Jack. And here at Podcast Recovery, we are aiming to expand the scope of support for recovering addicts. Accessibility and convenience of helpful services is paramount to combating addiction. We work to bring the message of recovery to every addict, wherever and whenever it is needed. We believe that a powerful voice of recovery should be obtainable, practical, and at the touch of a button. Every addict deserves to hear a message of hope, and Podcast Recovery is here to provide it. All right, everybody, thanks for joining us once again. If you'd like to become part of the Podcast Recovery family, you can check us out on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, like, share, subscribe. And also, we need your help to keep the mics on. So please go to our Venmo for PayPal, and we are fully self-supporting. So any donations are greatly appreciated and well used. But yeah, we'd like to thank everybody, especially Jack. It was fantastic. But most importantly, everybody out there,
stay safe and stay clean.